All right, we are going live. We are getting straight into it today. And I just wanted to make a couple of comments before we do. And first and foremost, if you are anything like the patients that we treat in my clinic, I will hazard a guess that you are also not okay with being told that your eggs are no good, right? And I would also imagine that you feel particularly upset about such a nondescript comment from a doctor when you're not exactly sure if you really have explored every option still available to you. So what I would love, as you start to kind of listen in to this talk, it's live right now on Facebook, it's live on Instagram as well. And I want you to just let me know if any of this is even in any of these thoughts are even in the realm of being true for you. Because I know that for so many of our patients, it absolutely is. And it makes such a difference, to understand where it is that you stand. So today I'd really like your permission so that, we can make this as interactive as discussion as we possibly can. I would hate it for it to be just me talking at you. So I would love for you to interact and comment, post in the comments below, ask your questions. It's going to be a really interactive conversation. So I'd really like for you to just join in and ask your questions, right? Hello. I'm Gabriela Rosa. I am a fertility specialist and a Harvard University awarded scholar. And for the last 2 decades, I have helped couples overcome infertility and miscarriage even when other treatments have failed. And now we know with an overall success rate of over 78%. So I'm thrilled to be able to really, bring to you after have the absolute privilege of treating couples in over 100 countries and having now taken over 100,000 people through various programs, be able to share with you some of the insights, that I have had over that time, in being able to help couples really get to the bottom of what is important in this conversation, and really be able to share with you some more about what helps you to be able to understand, how to take charge of your results, transform your results once and for all. So really that is what this conversation is all about. So what I would love is let me know in the comments below who's ready to learn and who's ready to take charge once and for all. So that is absolutely something that I would love to hear from you. Now, before anything else, right, I really want to acknowledge you because I know what it means showing up for this session. I know it takes a lot of guts, especially when you feel already like you've tried everything and nothing has worked. And it's so easy to feel unsure, about whether anything else could really help. There's almost always that kind of niggling little thought in the back of your mind when you're perhaps exploring something new to think, am I getting my hopes up? Am I setting myself up for disappointment? Especially, for so many of our patients, I hear this from them all the time because, in the end, they always come back and thank me. And that's one of the most beautiful things for really opening their eyes to a whole nother level of possibility. But in the beginning, it's so easy to feel like, wow, what if, I do this thing and, I don't get the result that I want, or I'm disappointed, right? And get my heart broken. So I totally get that after so much of what you have gone through, it can be really tough. So I commend you first and foremost for showing up, being brave, and really already making one of the absolute biggest differences to your existing situation, right? Which is really just showing up to learn and be here and find out more about other effective options that could be available to you. So huge welcome. And you guys, I always say this, for all of you who have participated in my fertility challenges or any of the events that we run, the Natural Fertility Breakthrough Program, of course, you guys truly, you inspire me every single day to get up, show up, and, really continue to do more of what it is that we do. And you guys are just superstars to me. So thank you. So let's get straight into it. I think that, it's important to kind of put a little bit of context around this conversation today because, this is such a huge, and I'm talking huge topic, right? It is one that I could absolutely, and hello, I can see that lots of people are saying hello, so super hello. There's, you know, Cassandra, Catherine, Sandra, lots of people on Facebook, lots of people on Instagram. Wow, look at you guys. You guys are amazing. So, you know, definitely feel free, say hello. But as I was saying, you know, this is literally a huge topic. It is such a big conversation, egg quality. There are so many nuances. There are so many different things. And mind you, I apologize. I'm going to try as much as I can to kind of, you know, face both cameras. I think next week we're going to add YouTube Live as well. So I'll have 3 cameras going on everywhere. But in the meantime, I wanted to kind of just get a little bit of context in terms of the questions that I get. You know, I get a lot of questions all the time. Egg quality is one of the most kind of topical conversations because it's something that often is really misunderstood. And it's misunderstood, and I'll explain to you today as to why this topic is so misunderstood and why there is so much that gets left to interpretation that's not correct information. So we're going to discuss that as well. But there are, like, I put down, as I was preparing for this talk, I put down like my top 10, you know, questions that I get about egg quality. So let me go through some of those questions with you so that you can kind of have a little bit of a sense of what I'm going to do my very best to approach with you today, and certainly answer as many as I can, if not all, and probably some others that you kind of didn't even know you had. So, you know, things that I get asked all the time are things like, you know, what can I do to improve my egg quality? How does my age affect egg quality? How long does it take to improve egg quality? Is donor egg a guaranteed solution for poor egg quality? That's such a good question, and we're going to explore that in more detail. This next question is a question that people really have often no idea about, and it is, can my partner's sperm quality impact my egg quality? That is a very important question. We're going to dive deep into that one. Does egg quality matter if I decide to do IVF? What are the key drivers to optimizing egg quality? And, you know, I've noted down just really, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, about 8, just off the top of my head. So we're going to explore that. What is the difference between egg quality and ovarian reserve? And how does it impact your chances of getting pregnant? So again, and question number 9 is, does improving egg quality matter if you have low ovarian reserve? And question 10, how do you know that you have improved egg quality? Right? So these are all of the kind of topical questions and top line questions that I get asked all the time. So my purpose today really is, in just under an hour, share with you 3 big ideas that encompasses the answers to all of these questions, and probably, as I said, others that you haven't even, you know, that you didn't even know that you had, right? So I'm going to really focus on that and hopefully, you know, get some clarity here where perhaps there hasn't been some. So let me know in the comments below. Are you with me? Are you excited? Comment so that I know. Or, you know, on Facebook, you can give me some love, give me some likes. On Instagram these days, I don't even know how you can comment, but just go ahead so that I know that you're there. And that will be fabulous. And let's get started. I'm going to share big idea number 1. Right? Big idea number 1 is fertility is a team sport. And one thing that I want you to really kind of put this into context is this, right? You'd have to agree with me that after 20 years and having treated several thousand patients and having had multiples of that in patient conversations, big idea number 1 is big idea number 1 for a very good reason, right? So what I would like to get you clear about is the context of biology, how eggs actually are formed, developed, matured in the first place, and essentially the role of the egg when it comes to not only conceiving, you know, obviously fertilization, conception, fertilization, embryonic development, and of course, keeping a healthy pregnancy to term ongoing, right? And delivering a healthy baby. So all of those things are mediated by egg, sperm, and embryos as well, right? So we're going to be talking about that, but predominantly today, I want to talk about the egg and how the egg is affected in all of these things, okay? So let's just start this conversation by saying this. Women, you know, we are born with all of the eggs that we will ever have. And mind you, in 5 or 10 years from now, that conversation might have changed slightly, because we're looking at stem cell research and we're looking at a whole lot of different things that are going to extend fertility beyond what it currently is. At the moment, though, that still remains true, that women, we're born with all the eggs that we'll ever have, right? And the egg, I like to describe the egg as a very hard worker, but also slightly bossy, right? Not like me at all, but you know, slightly bossy, and basically quite important in the mediation of how this whole process works. So let me explain what I mean by that. Well, here's the thing. We're born with all the eggs we'll ever have. The eggs have basically 2 cycles of sperm development, I beg your pardon, of maturation and development. So basically what happens is that from primordial follicle to primary follicle, which is the first kind of, you know, section of that development, you have a situation where it takes about 4 months. And basically, there are so many factors that can impact that initial period of maturation and development, right? Then you have a second period of maturation and development, which is basically from primary follicle to ovulatory follicle. So which also takes about 120 days. So it takes about four months each cycle, which basically means that we're looking at an egg maturation process of about 8 months. Okay, so it doesn't just kind of happen every month that, you know, you've ovulated, you have an egg that basically has popped out of a follicle, and all of a sudden that egg has only just kind of, you know, been created or matured in that last month. No, that egg that was ovulated in this cycle has been recruited and prepared and matured and worked on and impacted by every single thing in your environment, from the things that you eat to the exposures that you have to your nutrient you know, levels, to your emotions, to you name it, your genetics. You know, all of those things are basically impacting that development throughout that entire period. Okay, so it's important that we understand that when we're talking about improving egg quality, which is absolutely possible, it doesn't happen in a month, it doesn't happen in 2 months, it doesn't happen in 3, it happens in 8, right? You can certainly make a concerted effort from that period of, you know, primary follicle to ovulatory follicle. Sure, you can make a huge improvement in how the resources and the drivers, the key drivers for egg quality, how they're actually placed in your environment, and that can make a big difference for many couples. But often what we see in our clinic is that it takes a bit longer than that, simply from a biology perspective, right? We're looking at the fact that, you know, as much as I would love, and I've written about this in my upcoming book, I've got a book coming out at the end of this month, and one of the things that I've written on there is that, you know, we have been so badly trained by technology, you know, where we think that we press the button, we get what it is that we want. And, you know, if you go to the App Store, you want to download an app, literally you press the button, it's there in a couple of minutes. And if it takes a couple of minutes, we're kind of going, oh my God, this is taking forever, right? The reality is that biology hasn't changed very much in billions of years in terms of how the body actually works and how it processes and does the things that it needs to do. So we need to understand that when it comes to improving fertility, optimizing, changing the game in terms of this conversation, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. But here's the other factor that often gets neglected in terms of this conversation, right? It's the impact of sperm on egg quality. And often, you know, my patients will come and tell me, like, they literally will have a conversation and we'll have a session, a consultation, and they'll say to me, oh, you know, like my issue, my doctor said that my issue is that I need donor egg. My egg quality is poor, I need donor egg. And I basically explore and say, okay, tell me what's happening for your husband. It's like, no, he's fine. There's nothing wrong with him. He's fine, right? And it's really just my egg quality. I just need to improve my egg quality. So we then have to have a very enlightening conversation, okay, which basically we are going to have right now, which is this: fertility is a team sport. The egg has the responsibility of, the second that a sperm gets inserted or, you know, finds its way inside it, it has the responsibility of addressing the genetic malformations, so to speak, or the genetic glitches within that sperm. Okay, so first of all, in natural conception, what happens is that, or even through IVF, because in IVF there is, egg in a petri dish surrounded by 100,000 sperm, and so the egg kind of sends out chemical signals to the sperm that best complements the genetic composition of that particular egg. And in nature, that's also what happens. ICSI bypasses that, right? So ICSI, basically, you're picking up a sperm that, supposedly and hopefully is viable, and you look at it under the microscope, yes, it's moving somewhat. Therefore, let's just assume that that's going to be good enough, sperm to be able to actually make the whole process work. And that is then inserted into the egg. Now, there are several problems with that, and I'm going to be talking more about this in different topics within our Gabriela Rosa episode. So I won't dive too deep into that conversation right now. But when we're talking about a natural or an assisted selection process where the egg and the sperm are left to interact on their own, the egg is going to be sending out the signals for that sperm that best complements it. Once that sperm gets into the egg's responsibility is then to make sure that it spruces it up, cleans it up, gets it ready for a healthy pregnancy to occur, okay? And so what happens is that, think about this, if the sperm is dirty, tired, unhealthy, injured, and ultimately not doing its very best or in the best possible way that it can present itself, we are going to have to get the egg to utilize so many more of its innate resources and energy production systems in order to get that ready, that sperm ready for, kind of being acceptable for a conception to not only take place, but embryo to continue to develop and, of course, ideally have a healthy pregnancy. Therefore, what happens is this: the egg can't always, because it might already be depleted in terms of its own energy production and it might be struggling a little bit, it can't always do that job very well, right? And so what happens is that you end up with a result where there is no development of an embryo, or where a conception doesn't even occur, or where, development of embryos in a petri dish basically get halted, or we end up with an early miscarriage, or even having miscarriages before a pregnancy test is even positive, right? Or having a later term miscarriage. So all of these things can happen as a result of this early interaction, okay? However, what happens is this: if that sperm is the absolute, it's a hero, right? And it's the absolute best possible shape that it can be, in the best possible health. It's basically clean and beautiful and, doing all the things that it needs to do. When it enters the egg, all of a sudden that consideration, that conversation, that interaction is going to be very different. The amount of energy that is then available for the egg, not only to ensure that, yes, okay, this process is handled, but that it can continue to do all of the subsequent steps that are required in order to get a pregnancy to term, is going to certainly be easier. Right? And so this is why I always say, whenever we're talking about fertility, fertility is a team sport. It does not matter whether you think that the sperm is great, whether you've been told that the sperm is great. It doesn't matter at all, other than what life demonstrates, right? And here's what I mean by that. You may have a semen analysis that looks fantastic on paper, right? And really, there are no major issues. You look at it and you go, yep, this is great. But the result that we're getting is not a healthy pregnancy to term and a healthy baby. If that is ever the case, we don't go by my problem is not conceiving, my problem is keeping a pregnancy to term, or, my problem is conceiving and I have an egg quality issue and my husband's sperm is fine. None of those things are even remotely important or relevant in the grand scheme of this conversation, because guess what? Biologically speaking, as I've just explained, both partners have a 50-50 equation, input into this equation, okay? And so ultimately what it means is you may have the best possible sperm and the egg quality might be down, or the egg quality is average and the sperm is as good as it can be, but again, it's still not enough. or the egg quality is okay, but the sperm is really down, right? Then all of those situations, all of those scenarios still involve 100% engagement and involvement from both prospective parents in that 50-50 equation. Does this make sense? Right? I'd love to actually make sure that we are really clear on this concept, because this is a crucial piece of the equation. Okay, so give me some love, give me some likes, give me some, like comments on all the, wherever it is that you're watching, because really for you to understand this piece is going to help us to really focus on the next pieces that are going to be important. Okay, so this is one crucial aspect that I cannot underemphasize. Okay, if we don't address this, we are going to end up with issues no matter what it is that we think or what it is that we're told about where your egg quality is actually at in any particular time. Okay, so this is going to be really, really crucial and great. You guys are all totally getting it. Oh, I can see that there are little love buttons on Instagram as well. That's awesome. Okay, fantastic. You guys are awesome. Thank you. Thank you for letting me know that you're getting this. And that's really, really important. Okay, so ultimately, the role of the egg is, and this is why I was saying before, women, we start telling men what to do from the outset, okay? That is just how it is. And guys, don't take it in a bad way. It's just, like we do our best. We do our very best in every way we can. So ultimately, in order to improve egg quality, we actually need to concurrently improve sperm quality. Right? Because we're talking about a net result here, which the net result is, do we have a pregnancy? Do we have a baby? At any given point where you want to have a baby and you're just getting a pregnancy, but you're getting no baby, or you're going through any part of that process through assisted reproductive technologies or natural conception, and we're not getting to the end result of a baby, we have to come back to the drawing board and really explore what are all of the factors that could be impacting this and how is it that we need to address it. And it will always come back down to that, to that kind of dual type situation, okay? I cannot emphasize enough the importance of both partners being the absolute healthiest they can be in the process of optimizing your chances of conception through any means. Okay, whether it is through natural conception or through IVF, whatever it is that you're trying to do, it is always going to be a matter of doing the absolute very best to be at your peak health, therefore to optimize your fertility. Okay, that's just part of the equation. It's not the only thing that's going to make a difference. And of course, there are many nuances and complexities and things that need to be addressed within that conversation further. For couples that we treat, for example, in our clinic, we specialize in difficult and complex cases, treating people who have tried everything, nothing has worked, have been infertile or have experienced miscarriages for more than 2 years. And so I really understand the absolute crucial importance of getting clarity on all of the factors that could be impacting this particular situation of taking home a healthy baby, right? So this is just something that I need you to really get clarity on. Now, the next big idea that I want to share with you is that when it comes to egg quality, okay, the measure is wrong. It's really that simple. You may have basically gone to a doctor and had your AMH tested, your anti-Mullerian hormone. You may have had your FSH, your follicle stimulating hormone. All of those tests may have been done and there are results, okay? We've talked about the egg maturation cycle. Now, in a pool of 300,000 eggs, for example, right, when we're measuring those hormones and the presence of those hormones in the blood, we're using an approximation method, okay, to be able to understand a little bit more than what we would otherwise understand in order to be able to make some assumptions and extrapolations on where our current fertility is at. Can you see that it's really difficult to actually get an accurate measure? In fact, it is impossible to get an accurate measure when it comes to fertility and certainly to ovarian reserve, because you can't go there. It's not like you can open, the ovary and count every single follicle there or, egg possible potential follicle that is there and possible egg that is there to be able to actually get a number. You actually have to do some approximation. You have to measure it through biomarkers and everything else. Now, the second that we do that, are we actually measuring the entire pool? And what we know, this is just science, right? What we know is that when we're measuring those hormones, we are not actually measuring the entire available pool, okay? We are measuring the recruited follicles in that particular kind of period of time. And typically it's in those two stages that we were talking about, mostly in the second one. So in the kind of 120-day period, okay, in the last 120-day period from primary follicle to ovulatory follicle is kind of where those numbers are coming from. So it's not like, when you do an AMH test, even though you might get, say you get a number, okay, whatever that number is representative of the pool that is kind of, being recruited mostly in that second side, in that kind of second part of the development phase. Not all of the eggs that are actually present, okay? So does this make sense, first and foremost? I really want to make sure that you guys get this concept that, we're trying to measure something, but really what we're measuring is an approximation of that thing, okay? So that's going to be a really important understanding, because this is why couples are often, this conversation gets so oversimplified, and people basically just, are told, you've got this result, therefore this is your situation. But the reality is, I've had patients, I have one patient, dear patient of mine who, came to us. So this woman, she was told by 3 different doctors, 3 different clinics, that you're never going to conceive without donor egg. And in fact, donor egg is very unlikely to work anyway, and you're most likely going to need to adopt. Right? So you can imagine she was, under 40. She was a little bit, taken aback by that conversation with 3 different clinics, 3 different doctors. And so she found out about us. She decided to give this, treatment a proper go. And we did everything that we needed to do. And we got to the point where not only did she conceive, she had a beautiful baby, right? Naturally with her own eggs. And this we see very frequently. What was fascinating about her case is it's a beautiful example and demonstration. In fact, her case, if you guys go to our little baby gallery that I started last year, I thought, Instagram is such a thing these days. Let's start a baby gallery on there. So for the last year and a little bit, we've started to post the babies that we find out about, that we know about in the Gabriela Rosa Fertility account. And her story is there. So if you scroll through and you read through the accounts on there, or the posts on there, you will find this story. And what was fascinating about this woman is that when we first had this conversation, she told me exactly what it is that I just told you, which is, no, you're not going to conceive, you need donor egg, nothing wrong with your husband, we'll just do ICSI. When you hear that, you've got to kind of hang on. Why are we doing ICSI? Why are we not doing IVF? If everything is fine with the sperm, we should not have to be doing ICSI, right? I then get a report of that semen analysis, and I look at it and I go, every score was below average. Right? Poor sperm quality, very poor sperm quality. So here we are, a woman being told that she needs donor egg. That's probably not even going to work, but we have really, not great sperm at all. And we're being led down this path where I kind of think, okay, well, what else is there that we really need to understand? Because, like I was saying before, there are many key drivers to egg quality in that maturation period, different things. For example, your hormonal balance in that cycle will impact the development of your egg quality. Your nutritional status, your genetics, environmental factors, chemical exposures, radiation exposures, all of these things. And mind you, this is all science. This is, if you go to PubMed.com and you start to, kind of research these things, you will find that every single one of these aspects that I'm touching on have been heavily researched over the last 10 years, right? So, and interestingly though, when I first started doing this 20 years ago, there wasn't much research on these topics. We just knew from common sense that these things would make a difference. Now there is so much evidence to show that all of these factors do drive not only how cells develop, but how they mature and how they actually, are able to exert their effect. And the egg and the sperm are no different. right, in terms of that. So it's really important. So, you know, sperm quality will also be a mediator here. Then obviously we're looking at diet, lifestyle, you know, being at a healthy weight range. You know, all of these things will make a huge difference to egg quality and to sperm quality as well. So in this case, where both of them, you know, she was in a bit of better shape and better health, because women tend to kind of do more things because they think and they're told that it's your egg quality that's a problem. Therefore, they actually go and do much more. But, you know, in terms of him, he was very open to then, you know, once he understood this conversation, he understood what it is that it was required. He was very open to actually then putting in the work that made all of the difference in their case. His sperm, in a very relatively short period of time, really improved dramatically, right? To the point where they were able to conceive naturally without donor egg very, very quickly after we've actually done all the things that we needed to do. They decided to come back and revisit the program, as many of our patients do, and second time around conceived even faster. She was over 40 by that stage, right? And so basically what I know for sure is that when you put those foundations in place, and mind you, some of these things, you know, there will be lots of effort that goes into really understanding all of the minor factors. And I'll talk a little bit more about minor factors in a moment, because minor factors are a huge key for improving egg quality. But, you know, all of these little obstacles that could be getting in the way, and that often compound each other when it comes to getting the end result that we're talking about, which obviously is a healthy baby. Nobody wants to get pregnant, right? Nobody wants to be pregnant. I mean, sure, you want to experience that for, you know, the time that you need to experience it. But the end result, the only reason that we want to be pregnant is because we want to have a baby. And we want to have a healthy baby, right? So looking at all of these different areas, looking at all of these different aspects makes a huge difference to being able to really optimize what it is that we want to create here, okay? So these drivers are going to be key. And putting it all together and understanding that measure isn't necessarily a prognostic you know, determination. It's not something that, you know, just because you have a lowered AMH and, you know, you've been told that the only thing that you can do is donor egg, think again, because then we have to ask about the obstacles to optimum fertility. So let's talk about that for a little moment, because this is also a very key concept, because again, this is where the measurement it's so wrong, right? Looking at a couple situation and just looking at whether these particular hormones are at the level that they need to be is a gross miscalculation of what's required to actually overcoming infertility and miscarriage when other treatments have failed, especially, okay? And here's why. What happens is that a couple at peak fertility has an average of, and by the way, this is based on thousands and millions of people. Actually, this is epidemiological research across the globe, right? So this is not numbers that I'm making up. This is just basically on epidemiological research. So a couple at peak fertility has an average of 3 months time to pregnancy. So literally it's have sex, get pregnant, have a baby, done. We're no longer having this conversation, right? Once after that period of time, we're still having this conversation, we have to start asking, hang on a second, what are the other possible factors that are getting, you know, kind of into this situation? Because here's what happens. When you add one obstacle, just a minor factor, and a minor factor can be anything from, you know, my hormones aren't where they need to be, sperm, it could be improved. You know, I've had a failed IVF cycle, or, you know, you name it. I've got some health issues or comorbidities or whatever it is, right? So other health conditions that are impacting the situation. So whatever those factors are, let's just add one of them. We don't have to add very many, but we just add one of them, right? And all of a sudden, this is what the numbers look like. From an average of 3 months time to pregnancy, it jumps to 2 years. Right? So there is a huge compounding effect that happens just with one minor factor. You then add a second minor factor to that equation. Let's say we have PCOS, okay, which I do, and have conceived 2 beautiful healthy baby boys and delivered 2 healthy baby boys by doing exactly what it is that I preach, right? So naturally, and you know, despite my husband also having had sperm issues. So really, it's about looking at what else can you do. But you add that second minor factor to the equation, all of a sudden, we go from an average of 2 to 7 years, and a third minor factor gives us an average of 40 years time to pregnancy. no one has 40 years to get pregnant, right? And so really what we need to do is we need to really have a look at what are all of the things that could be getting in the way. Because when we try to say that, oh, it's because your age or because of your egg quality or because, you know, and try to just get it down to one thing, we are oversimplifying a conversation to the point where we are left with very little places to take charge of, which is really the wrong way to approach it. Because what I see in my clinic and have seen for 20 years is that once we actually start to really understand in a very granular way, in a very kind of dissected way, what are all of the areas that make a difference and how can we have marginal improvements in all of those areas, you know, from a medical perspective as well as a holistic and self-care perspective, then all of a sudden we start to be able to have different conversations that we just didn't even know were possible. And we start to see results and changes in situations that previously were prognosticated to be a certain way, like you need to have donor egg or, you know, adopt, right? Whereas, hang on a second, what are the nuances in that conversation? What else is there that needs to be looked at that hasn't been looked at? And measuring all of those places accordingly in a very systematic and methodical way is really how we get this idea of measuring things correctly so wrong, okay? And why? And, you know, again, why it's so important, okay? Because if we don't do that, guess what? We're then just going to be left with, oh yeah, you're too old. Your eggs are no good, right? How good's that? Does anyone like that prognosis? Give me the comments below, you know, how does that sound? How does it feel, right? Obviously, there are other things that need to be improved. And of course, you know, there are so many different improvements that can be made to sperm. So whether we're looking at, you know, fragmentation issues or, you know, and I'm kind of just mentioning these things because they're coming up on my timelines. But yeah, there are so many things that can be done, and all of those factors typically can be improved by implementing all of these, you know, aspects that we're talking about and these key drivers. So understanding for a case for a particular person, and this is the thing, people are different, right? And different ways of addressing things is certainly going to be required. And when it comes to being able to get results where everything else hasn't worked, because think about it, right? Einstein didn't say that doing the same thing, expecting a different result was the way to go, right? The guy was kind of a smart dude, right? He basically said that that's really kind of insanity, right? So if we continue doing the same thing, expecting a different result, looking at this whole situation in the same way, thinking that it's a numbers game, you know, there is nothing, and I'll get a little bit off my soapbox in just a moment, but, you know, there is nothing worse than being told, as far as I'm concerned, than being told, just keep trying, it's a numbers game. And then I assess a couple of situations and I go, but hang on a second, there's 50 minor factors in this case, right? It happens very, very frequently. Very frequently that I see that, because in our clinic, we go through literally fine-tooth comb. We do a complementary fertility assessment where we actually measure your minor factors to begin with, so that I can really understand what are we dealing with here, right? I'm not interested in age. I'm not interested in being told that your eggs are no good. I'm interested in figuring out, okay, of those key drivers, where are the places of opportunity? Where can we actually be making a difference? Because if we know that, then there is work to be done. Right? And often when we're talking about minor factors, the reality is I don't care about the numbers, right? I mean, I've seen people with literally 50 plus minor factors in a report where I look at it and I go, yeah, okay, we've dealt with this before. This is something we can do, right? We can change these circumstances. And so understanding, first of all, what you're dealing with is going to be key. Measuring things correctly, as much as they are still approximations, is going to be foundational to transforming results, to taking charge of your fertility and truly transforming the results that you're actually experiencing, okay? So that's going to be very, very important. Now, how, essentially in terms of how these biomarkers, and mind you, biomarkers are great because they give us some idea, whereas previously we might not have any idea. So the answer is not to stop testing or to, you know, ignore those numbers, not at all, right? But the answer is to put them into context and really open up that whole conversation to the degree and the level where we're starting to look at a much more comprehensive landscape as opposed to just, looking at this situation going, oh, it's because of this one reason, it's because of this one thing. It is never. Fertility, infertility, recurrent miscarriage, whatever it is that you want to call it, right, is absolutely never because of one thing. That is just categorical. I can say that, with absolute certainty. It's never, ever, ever, ever a matter of one thing. Even when you're told your eggs are no good, right? So take that with a huge, huge grain of salt, because often there is so much more that you can do to really optimize your chances of not only getting pregnant, but taking a healthy home, taking home a healthy baby, if you actually do all the things that you need to do. So is this making sense? Yeah, I hope that it is. What I'm going to do now is before I share my big idea number 3, I'm going to take some time now just to quickly have a look through your comments and basically just, answer any questions that you guys might have as best as I can. So, here's the thing. When it comes to age, right? Age is... Yeah, I know, right? There's like thousands of people that are going to be asking questions. Once this is released and people watch it later, it's going to be like questions galore, I'm sure. So hopefully watch the video first before asking questions. But for those of you guys who are here and are live, then absolutely fab that you ask your questions now. So anyway, let's go through and let's just see. So yeah, minor factors are huge. Magali, you're absolutely right. And Rachel's like, hell no, don't want to be told that. Yeah, see, this is absolutely, oh my God. Alana on Instagram has said, I'm 32, 2 failed IVF cycles, was told it's egg quality. Now, do you understand, like literally, as I read that, as I'm talking about this, I have goosebumps all over, because this is the kind of thing that happens all the time. And it happens incorrectly and in a way that is very disempowering, I feel, for most couples struggling through this journey. Okay, so there is so much more that you can do. Right? I mean, obviously, if you've never joined a fertility challenge, go ahead and do that. If you want to have a conversation, in fact, the next one is only in October. So there will be things that you can do before then, perhaps even having a conversation with our team, right? So that's something that we do offer a complimentary fertility assessment. So definitely go ahead, have a conversation, see if we can help, and often we can help and we can then take you through how that works. But, don't believe that for a second. Right? If you're 32, you've had failed IVF cycles. And actually, this is one very important thing, which again, next week, I'm talking about how to improve your odds of IVF working, right? So I'll be talking about that, and I'll leave some of this for next week's conversation. But one thing that I will say is this. If you've had, at any point where you have a sperm and an egg being put together, either through IVF, ICSI, whatever it is, right? We should have a pregnancy. It's categorical. It's just how it is. Have an egg and a sperm together, we should have a pregnancy. If we don't, there are absolute questions that we need to ask. And often those questions are related to minor factors. They're related to those obstacles to optimum fertility. Now, what many couples get wrong, and very wrong in this conversation, is that they think, okay, I've been trying to conceive for this period of time, haven't been successful. Clearly, there's technology and there are things that I need to do. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to actually go and do that, okay? I'm going to go and do IVF or do ICSI or whatever, without first understanding fully and completely what all of their minor factors are, how they are impacting the chances of taking home a healthy baby, and what needs to be done about it. At any point that you think you can bypass nature and that you can basically just, bypass technology, will bypass the obstacles to fertility, we are skating on thin ice, right? I am so pro-science, right? I would never be going to Harvard if that wasn't the case, right? So for me, research science is everything. And getting absolute, categorical determinations in terms of what works and what doesn't is an absolute passion of mine. So when we are looking at a situation where this is going on, I get a little bit upset because basically, let's be honest, there are so many factors that can be improved and optimized if we actually take a deeper look into this whole situation. So yes, from the perspective of what needs to be done, there is so much more. Don't hear that, oh, I've done, this and it hasn't worked and therefore it's my egg quality. When you haven't fully understood, assessed and addressed all of your obstacles to optimum fertility in the best possible way to either neutralize or remove them wherever possible, but really getting very clear about the fact that skipping the work, right, and going direct to IVF is likely just going to lead to a failed outcome. Okay, the more failed outcomes that you have in terms of that, the less likely you are to conceive. And obviously time passes, right? And so we'll talk about that as well. But ultimately, this is part of the crucial understanding that we need to have. Sometimes you have to almost take a step back, assess, reassess, get full clarity on what's going on so that we can proceed fully and effectively forward in a way that we know is going to absolutely increase the chances and the odds in our favor, right? So really, it's so important to get that distinction right, okay? So immunological issues I'm going to be talking about, definitely there are lots of different ways in which in our clinic, in fact, we have a very special interest in immunological infertility, and it's something that we treat with great success. And so I'll be doing talks about this in the upcoming Ask Gabriela Rosa events, but definitely have a chat with our team because this is something that we can definitely help. Okay, so there's not many questions specifically relating to egg quality, although there is one here in terms mentioning hypothyroidism. And this is important because that is a very, very key and crucial minor factor that also will impact egg quality. So we need to take those things into consideration, right? All of these things are going to make a difference in the long and the grand scheme of things, okay? So we need to be really aware of that. So let me take you on through to big idea number 3, because I am aware of the time. I'm aware that we need to make sure that I fulfill my promise to answer as many questions as you have, and also get through the things that I really want to impart upon you today that I really feel will make a huge difference, okay? So the third idea is one that I'm sure you have heard of before, and that is the idea that time is not your friend, right? Time, when it comes to fertility, time is not your friend, but not for the reason that you have been told previously, okay? Which is you're old, age, this, that. I look at age very differently because the majority of our patients are over 40 or close to 40. And so I know, and we know we have a 78+ success rate with the patients that come to the Natural Fertility Breakthrough Program. So I know for a fact that age is a factor, but it's not actually age itself that is the problem. The problem that often gets compounded are the side effects of age, right? So for example, if the mitochondria of the egg aren't developing as well or being fueled as well as they need to be because of age, that's going to be a much bigger problem to fertility and to obviously taking home a healthy baby than it is the actual number that you're at. And once we address that fine biological component, things are possible that weren't possible before at the same age. And, I see things very differently because our patients, like for example, they will come to us after years and years of infertility or recurrent miscarriage. We do what it is that we need to do for them, really getting the clarity and getting to the bottom of what needs to happen. They not only conceive, but then they come back to us, and this I see very frequently. If you've ever done any of the fertility challenges, you will see that this is absolute, is that our patients then second time around typically conceive much faster, right, than the first time once, before we addressed all of those factors, because making sure that biologically and biochemically we are in that homeostatic balance is absolutely crucial for helping to improve the odds of conception and the chances of conception down the track, okay? So this is something that's important. So age, yes, consideration for sure. I mean, obviously, if you're 50, you're probably going to need donor egg, right? Sometimes people, even at 45, will need donor egg. It's the reality is that you can't reverse everything. Okay. However, it doesn't mean that donor egg is going to be the answer to just bypassing, addressing your minor factors, because if you don't do that, then you're still going to end up with, like in many cases, we see people who come to us because they've had several failed IVF cycles and or donor egg cycles or even donor embryo cycles because all of the minor factors weren't addressed. Okay, so there are those very important key concepts that also need to be taken into consideration when we're looking at getting answers. Like for my patients, really what I'm interested in is like, I want to get to the bottom of what's going on. Right? I really want to understand, like we do practically detective work to really figure out, the correlation tables that we run in this place for each one of our cases are massive. We put down every possible single thing, and then we start to correlate. How does this impact that? How does this impact that? What else do we need to actually look at? How else do we, and I know for a fact, no clinic around the world, we see patients from all over the world. I know that this isn't done anywhere else. And I really truly believe that that's part of why we get the results for our patients that we do, where everything else hasn't worked and they've been around the block, right? Because we're looking at this in a very different way. But here's the thing that you need to understand. Our bodies have evolved in such a way that if everything goes to plan, right? Think about it. Think about it when your grandparents started having babies, or even your great-grandparents started having babies. It was at the age of 14. Right? At the age of 16, they pretty much had like a couple of kids. At the age of 18, they were kind of done and continued to have kids because there was no contraception. But really, if we look at, the development of this conversation over time, most people at around 18, my mum, she had me at 21. Right? I had my children much later in my life. Like I think I had my second child by 38 or something, right? And so it's a very different conversation. And so, by my mom was a grandparent, late, because I didn't have children at 18 like she did. But if I had children at the age of my mother, she would have been 42 and a grandparent, right? These days, people are starting to have children at 42, right? And again, there is nothing wrong with that, but we need to take into account that we can't hack biology. We need to work with what it is that we have. And so this concept of really addressing all of your minor factors is crucial, because that's ultimately what's going to make a difference to you being able to get a result in the first place, okay? And then obviously being able to repeat that. Every single month that you are not applying the right strategy, you are decreasing your chances of taking home a healthy baby. Simply from the perspective that, remember what I said before, it takes 8 months to improve egg quality. And how do you know that you've truly improved egg quality? Well, you have a baby. That's really how you know, right? And there are other things, of course, excuse me, as I make sure that I don't blubber all over the place. There are many things that basically need to be taken into consideration when it comes to that. But really, the way that you know is categorical, right? You have a baby or you don't. And if that's the outcome, then from our patients' perspectives, we're constantly asking, okay, what else? How else? What else do we need to be doing? But here's what I see, and this is just from my own experience with my patients, is that our patients on the Natural Fertility Breakthrough Program take home babies between 14 to 36 months of beginning the process, keeping in mind two very important things. There is 120 days of preconception preparation there, and a 9-month pregnancy. Okay, so here's what we see typically. We typically start to see results for our patients around the 6-month mark. So what happens is that if we delay doing things and getting proactive in what needs to be done, or if we are kind of going down a wrong strategy, and that is part of the delay, well, guess what? We're delaying results. If you delay by 3 months, you're delaying results really by 9 months, and delaying taking home a baby at the very minimum, if we put 14 plus 3, at the very minimum, 17 months, right? On the 36-month scale, obviously, it's 40 months or 39 months there. So, or actually more like 40 months. But really, whoops, my computer's doing funny things. But really, we're looking at a huge delay. Now, if we delay by 6 months doing the right strategy that's going to get you closer to your outcome, guess what? All of a sudden, we're delaying results in the perspective of what it is that we see for our patients by 12 months, and delaying taking home a baby, again, by 20 months, or 36 months, 42 months on the other side, right? Many people you don't have a 12-month window when we're dealing with egg quality issues and that we need to improve a whole lot of different things. You don't have 6 months to delay, because that means a delay of 12 months till you start seeing results. Okay, so really that is, when I talk about time is not your friend, I'm talking about the fact that the time to take charge is literally now. There are two scenarios, two experiences that I have in my clinic that, I have very, very happy experiences, like really heartwarming, thrilling, beautiful experiences. And then I have really, really sad experiences. The beautiful experiences is like I had last week. We had 5 babies. Yes, 5 babies. I don't feel one day postpartum, which is extremely happy for me. Our patients there were 5 babies that were, that were delivered. And basically for people who previously had tried everything, nothing had worked, right? So for me, that is incredibly heartwarming. When I get messages from my patients and they're like, wow, thank you. You've changed our lives. This is, it's amazing. It's beautiful, right? So those are parts of the incredibly happy experiences that I get to be a part of, and to know that I'm part of this little family, that because of what it is that we do, we're part of this, family that was created. It's incredibly heartwarming for me, and part of why I do what I do. Then I have these incredibly sad experiences where, I've had people who basically have heard me speak or had a chat or whatever, who go away and think that they can handle it, they can do it themselves, right? They can do it cheaper, faster, better, whatever, right? And then they come back to us a year later, 2 years later, 5 years later. I once had a lady who joined our program after 10 years of following me. Like literally that day I wanted to cry. Right? I mean, when I hear 1 year, I already want to cry, but 10 years, like if that person had come to me 10 years before, we would have been having a completely different conversation. And so those days where I see people kind of get in their own way and not get a result simply because I don't know. I honestly don't know, right, what it is that gets in the way of people actually taking the right step and making the right decision. But those are very sad experiences, and such a huge kind of like stamp for me of like, oh God, time is not your friend. So you have to want to change that first and foremost before anything else, because what I said before is so true, right? You want to make sure that you are giving yourself the best possible chance, because it doesn't happen overnight. Making these changes, making these adjustments, making sure that the body is being supported to do what it does naturally in the best possible way takes time. We can't hack biology, right? As much as it is that we would like to do. So that is big idea number 3. Right? This is the time to take charge. This is the time to do what it takes. This is the time to fully commit, because really, in the grand scheme of things, and this applies to all of our patients in the Natural Fertility Breakthrough Program as well, we know for a fact that when you work together as a team and you do what it takes, wow, what a better result our patients get, right? So you guys who I know are listening in, who are already in the program, just get in there, do it. Because you know what? In the grand scheme of things, think about it, right? What is 6 months, 12 months, optimizing everything in terms of your life, right? And getting the outcome that you're looking for, or at least knowing that for whatever reason, if no matter what, there's 20% of people who won't have babies through our program, right? Even if that is that, if a couple is part of that, isn't it better knowing that you've given your absolute all, that you've done everything that you possibly could, and that it didn't not happen because of you or what you did or did not do, right? That to me is one of the most important reasons as to what, I don't want my patients to have regret. I don't want them to feel like, they don't have a choice, or that, there are things that they could have done and they didn't. Okay. So that really is very much a part of what I do and why I do what I do. I know that my Instagram is telling me that there is only 1:40 till I finish this talk. Clearly I'm running late. Facebook is telling me a very similar story right here, right now. But, I just want you guys to really get that, because, the reality is there is more you can do. Okay. So I will answer questions. Jump on Facebook, because Facebook I can keep going. I don't know that I can keep going. In fact, I think I probably can start again on Instagram. I'm going to get better at getting my timing right for next week. And as we do these, I've got 20 weeks planned of education for you guys on all sorts of topics. So this is absolutely going to be, you know, an ongoing conversation. We're going to be doing this for, you know, literally every week at the same time in the same place. We might add some other platforms, but other than that, if you go onto the Gabriela Rosa Fertility page, you will be able to see the schedule. You'll be able to see what's coming up. You'll be able to see all of the things that you need to know in terms of what's next. The very next topic that I'm going to be talking about is how to improve your IVF and ICSI results. Okay, same place, same time. That's going to be crucial. The other thing that I will mention is that Fertility Breakthrough, which is my new book coming out at the end of this month, is going to be on pre-order. I think it's early as next week. So you guys will be notified about that as well. And lastly, if you feel that you need further support on your journey, if you're not sure about what to next, have a chat with one of my clinical assistants, because it's very possible that we may be able to help or at least guide you into a different direction that will help you. So if you want to have a chat with my team, just Google on your page. Let me just see if I can restart. There we go. I'm able to restart. Yes, I'm able to restart Instagram. So that's great. But if you want to have a further conversation with one of my clinical assistants and figure out if, you know, our team can support you on your journey, go to thefertile.me/chat. Okay, that's the URL, super simple, thefertile.me/chat. And you'll be able to schedule a time directly into one of my clinical assistants' schedule, right? And they will give you a call, and they will be able to have a chat with you and see if our team can support you. And if so, they will offer you a complimentary fertility assessment, right? If we feel that we can help, we will then assess your situation first, and you will attend an information session with me where I talk about the Natural Fertility Breakthrough Program and everything that you need to know there. And then you can decide what it is that you want to do, and you can take it from there. But those are 3 things that I just wanted to make sure that you know, and that, you know, are clear to you moving forward. I'm going to sit here, or not sit because I'm standing, but but I am going to just go through and see if there's any other major questions that I have not answered that you still want me to answer for you. So if there's anything, this is your moment, right? I'm going to be here for the next minute or so, making sure that, you know, if there's any new questions, that you pop it in there. Let me know one thing. Has this been useful? Please let me know on Facebook. Put it on the comments below if it has been useful for you. Put it on Instagram if it has been useful for you, because I really would love to know, you know, has it been useful, and have you learned something new, right? That's, you know, my view on learning new things is this. If I go to a seminar, a course, a talk, read a book, whatever it is, right? My outcome, my aim is always just to learn one thing, right? If I can learn one thing, one idea that propels me forward, I'm always ecstatic, right? Because I know that if I take that one idea and I implement it, it's going to be so worthwhile and so valid in my life in so many ways. So tell me, have you got one thing out of this? And if so, what is it? You know, what is the thing? What is the number one takeaway from this session that you go, wow, that was amazing for me? Please do comment that on the comments below, because I would love to know. And then we can take it from there. In terms of, there are a couple of questions that are coming in about, you know, how to improve different levels and how to do things like that. The biomarkers and the key drivers to optimum fertility, egg quality that I talked about before, those are the places that you actually have control. Now, you know, and I talked about it from nutritional status to genetics to environmental factors to, you know, also improving the male factor and the male side of the equation, diet and lifestyle, you know, all of those things will make a huge, huge difference. In our clinic, we also use very specific treatments, you know, so there's different modalities that we use. We use pharmaceutical grade herbal medicines. We use nutritional supplementation. We work in conjunction with many medical doctors and provide other sorts of treatments and therapies, you know, anything that's required. So basically we integrate many medical approaches within our own approach. So our approach is very medically focused. And so basically it's about looking at all of those different aspects and how it is that we can be making a difference in every single one of those parameters that we talked about, those incremental improvements that are going to create the end result that we're looking for. That is always going to be the focus. Okay. So yes. And, there's lots of things that we can talk about, like I said, this is a big conversation. We can talk about it forever. And so what I'm going to do is not talk about it forever, but, just keep engaging, right? Come back to the sessions. I'm going to be talking about different topics that are going to be very much answering all of these other questions that are going on here. And MTHFR, for example, oh my God, I cannot wait for my talk on MTHFR. There are so many misconceptions, so many things that are talked about that I just go, oh God. So yes, we're going to be talking about that and drilling deep into all of that. Oh, look at this beautiful Clint and Katie. God, I love you guys. You guys are awesome. So yeah, I'm very looking forward to that too. Okay, Clint. So guys, look, always such a pleasure. Have a chat. Like I said, if you feel like you need some extra support, even if you just want to kind of have your situation assessed by our team, just have that chat with the team. It's thefertile.me/chat. I opened up some spots with myself last week. We had 80 bookings in an hour. We've closed all of those spots now. I wasn't expecting, actually. I don't know what happened. I think that the team, I said to them, look, just open a couple of hours, here and there. And there was a glitch in the system and there was more time, made available than was actually available. And about 80 people booked in an hour. And I was like, oh my God, take a deep breath. It's going to be okay. So there is no chance to be having these initial conversations with me at this point, but certainly my team of clinical assistants will be there. And if the Natural Fertility Breakthrough Program is something that you would like to inquire or have more understanding about, then by all means come into one of the information sessions, which is with me, and we can talk about it further. Okay. So thank you so much. I love seeing what you guys have learned out of this. And NK cells, immunological infertility, all coming up. So by all means, either have a conversation with the team if you really are feeling urgent about that topic, or wait, because I will be talking about that, further. And one last conversation in terms of the genetics and Fragile X, egg quality. Definitely in the gray zone. I actually just wanted to make sure, because this was a question that was asked, there's different gradings in terms of Fragile X. In the gray zone, you still have the chance of optimizing everything that you can and still being able to conceive and take home a healthy baby. The reality of it will take more work, and it will take more work in all of those big idea areas that we've talked about, but also in all of the different biochemical components that need to be initiated and or furthered in order to be able to actually get a result. So yes, it is possible. Diabetes will, of course, impact egg quality. There are lots of other comorbidities and health conditions that will impact egg quality, and that can be improved and optimized. But that's the key aspect, is really looking at all of those things and doing the best that you can in every possible area in a direct way. Right, in the most direct way possible, because otherwise what ends up happening is that we keep kind of going around in circles, right? The problem with that is that couples often keep going around in circles for such a long time until sadly and eventually they run out of time altogether, and I'd hate that to happen for you. So have a chat with the team and then we can take it from there. All right, I hope this has been useful. Thank you so much for your time, for your attention. I look forward to coming back next week and sharing more. It's going to be all about how to improve your IVF and ICSI success rate. So join me. Lots of love. Until then, bye for now.